Hello. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the new version of my Perception AB plugin to avoid being fooled by the loudness deception when you're mastering your music. We hear all the time that louder is better, and it can feel as if the pressure to make your music super loud is just as intense at the beginning of the 21st century as it's ever been. But we need to be really careful with loudness because it can be deceptive. A difference of only half a dB can fool us into thinking that one piece of audio sounds better than the other, when actually it's just a little bit louder. And that's where Perception AB comes in. It allows you to make real-time, loudness-matched, latency-compensated pre and post, before and after comparisons for any audio processing chain, including external analog hardware and reference tracks. And that means you can make objective decisions about the changes that you're making to your audio without being fooled by loudness. And it's an incredibly powerful technique. So the new version of Perception AB has a whole host of new features optimized to help you make these kind of decisions when you're mixing your music. But in this video, I want to show you how you can use it in mastering and why it might be helpful for you. So let's take a look. I've got two songs here, Only Lover and Fragile, both by Joel Woods and mixed by his brother Josh. And I'm going to be working in Wavelab for this demonstration, but the techniques I'm going to show you can be used in any digital audio workstation. So I've got a mastered sound for these songs, and let me just give you a quick example of how that sounds for one of them.
Give to me, there's magic in your touch. Whisper in my ear and make my heartbeat start to rush. It's all I need. Oh, 'cause your love, it's all I need. And all our love comes naturally. We never have to try.
And of course, I can disable all of that processing, but as soon as I do, the level drops.
It's all I need.
So I think it sounds better, but there's such a big difference in loudness, it's hard to know for sure. It's possible that the difference I'm hearing is more about loudness than it is about the change in sound. So to make a really objective comparison, I need to match the levels. And I could do that by ear, by measuring the songs with a loudness meter and manually adjusting the level after all of the mastering processing. But it's much quicker and easier to use Perception AB. So I'm just going to add an instance here. And since this is going to go at the beginning of the processing chain, before any of the mastering processing, I'm going to choose to make this a pre-instance. So I'll just move that up to the beginning of the chain. And then over here in the master output section of Wavelab, I'm going to add perception again, but this time I'm going to choose to make this a post-master instance. There's a post-channel instance which is used in a mixing situation, but in this case, because we're mastering, we can have a single post-master instance. And now when I hit play,
It's all I need. And all our love comes naturally. We never have to try.
Perception immediately starts measuring the loudness at the pre-instance and the post-instance. And you can see that after mastering, this section of the song is at minus 12 LUFS, and before mastering, it was at minus 17 LUFS. Now we can also compensate for the latency in the chain by clicking the sync button. I'm going to do that now. And it mutes while it's doing that, just for a second or two. And this works for external analog hardware as well as in the box. And we can see that Perception has detected that in this case there is 206 milliseconds of latency between the pre and the post instances. So now I can use Perception to bypass all of that processing just by switching between the pre and post audio streams, and I can either select one side and the other, or I can just click in the same place to toggle between them so that I can close my eyes and compare. But that's not going to be any use yet because we're still going to hear that level difference.
It's all I need.
But now all I need to do is click Match Level to remove that loudness difference, and I can make seamless comparisons without being fooled by the loudness deception.
Of your love, it's all I need. Only love, and all the love you give to me. There's magic in your touch. You whisper in my ear and make my heartbeat start to rush. You're all I need.
And now I can make a really fair comparison of the pre and post sound, and I can hear that even when the loudness is matched, the top end has opened out nicely. We've tightened up the bass, but kept the depth that I was hoping for, and I'm really pleased with the results. And that, in a nutshell, is how Perception AB works. That's the benefit, is being able to hear past any loudness deception, any change in loudness that might be overriding your ability to hear those changes, those more subtle changes, accurately. It's a simple but powerful idea, but there's much more to using Perception AB than that. We've put a ton of effort into optimizing the workflow to make it as easy and intuitive as possible to use. And I'd like to show you some of that now. So, now let's say that we want to make the same judgment for the second song here. So I'm going to add Perception again to the beginning of the chain. Again, I'm going to choose to make this a pre-instance. It automatically assigns itself a new number. I'll move that up to the top of the chain here. And now when I press play,
I've been denied, and I wonder why. I thought this love.
The post-master instance automatically detects that we have a different song, we have a different pre-instance playing. You can see there it says pre-2 because I have auto mode enabled. And again, it starts measuring the pre and post levels. And you could hear when I switched between there, the jump in level and also the difference in sync that the latency was causing.
I thought this love wasn't so fragile. And you.
And of course, this is why Perception is so useful and so powerful. So I'm going to sync that again and match the level.
Didn't love me when I had your back. Oh, I thought this love wasn't so fragile. So fragile.
And actually the differences between the mastered and the unmastered versions are more subtle for this song. You notice them much more in the dynamics, in the compression that's taking place, than the overall EQ.
Me going for quite a while now.
And this is actually a great example of the power and importance of loudness matching, because without matching the level, you might think that the differences between the pre and post for this clip are much bigger than they really are. If I just temporarily clear that adjustment and we listen again to the overall difference,
For quite a while now. I thought we were perfect till I saw the cracks. That you didn't love me when I had your back.
with that level difference still in place, it actually feels as though there's a much bigger difference sonically than there really is. In particular, it feels like there's quite a big difference in the EQ, that there's a lot more treble and bass when you hear the louder version, but when they're loudness matched, you can hear that the difference really isn't that big. That's the value of Perception AB, to hear a realistic impression of the changes in the sound. Because remember, the first thing that people do when they're listening to a piece of music is adjust the level to something that they're comfortable with. So the overall loudness doesn't have a huge influence on the way people hear things, especially not if they're listening online or on a device that uses loudness normalization, which is very much becoming the norm these days. So I'll just rematch that level. You can do it while the music's playing, of course.
While now, I thought we were perfect till I saw the cracks. That you didn't love me when I.
Now the really great thing is that because we're using a post-master instance of Perception AB, I can switch immediately back to the other song.
There's magic in your touch. You whisper in my ear.
And it automatically detects that a different pre-instance is playing and switches between those settings. So if you watch, the pre and post adjustments will change, and also the sync. And And that will work for as many songs as I like. I can add pre-instances to a whole album's worth of songs and immediately skip between all of the different tracks. And you may have noticed that Perception was in ref mode, where I had chosen a reference level of -16 AUFS for the comparisons. But what about if I want to hear them in context of the mastered level? In that case, I can choose post mode. And in that case, when I click match level, rather than using a reference level, Perception AB won't change the mastered, the post level at all. It will simply bring the level of the pre-instance up to match. So let me show you that.